The Grenlec Debates, powering bright ideas.
You're watching the 10th season of the Grenlec Debates. Please bear in mind that matches, topics, and positions are randomly selected by schools. The theme for the round of 16 is development. I am your chairperson, Eric Williams, and I call this house to order. The motion: be it resolved that the importation of vehicles into Grenada be capped annually. The proposition: Beacon High. The opposition: Grenada Christian Academy. Please welcome the first speaker for the proposition.
Honorable Chair, distinguished judges, worthy opponents, audience all, good morning. Today we stand in support of the moot, be it resolved that the importation of vehicles into Grenada be capped annually. For the purpose of this presentation, importation refers to the act of bringing a product into a country. According to Merriam-Webster.com, annually means to cover the period of a year, and a cap is a limit or ceiling placed on. As first speaker, I will expand on the socio-economic impact the importation of vehicles annually has on the island and its people, while our second speaker will profoundly deliberate on health and environmental issues encountered. Our cross-examiner will skillfully command aspects of our opponent's presentation and confidently respond to questions posed by our opponents. Our fourth speaker will craftily present the rebuttal statement and cement in our minds once and for all the urgency to cap the importation of vehicles annually. Honorable Chair, the capping of the importation of vehicles annually is imperative, especially in light of the socio-economic problems we encounter. It is quite evident that the government's decision not to cap the importation of vehicles annually is far-reaching and selfish. Valid information from the Inland Revenue Department of the Ministry of Finance revealed that over a 7-year period, 2009 to 2016, a total of 4,420 new vehicles and 7,383 used vehicles were imported into Grenada. To continue in this vein, we embrace the proverb, penny wise, pound foolish. Honorable Chair, in this 21st century, if limits are not placed on the importation of vehicles within the country, the people will eventually drown. The next question is, should the governments continue in this vein, or should they rise up and cap the importation of vehicles annually? This morning, we declare that the capping of the importation of vehicles is inevitable. We must, however, give a thumbs up to the government for the exorbitant taxes and fees on vehicle importation, because if these fees were lower, there would be even more vehicles on the road. Worthy judges, can you imagine that? The issue, Honorable Chair, is that there isn't a proper parking facility in the city. Vehicles are parked all over the island on the already narrow roadways. Honorable Chair, another issue is the obstruction to traffic flow, especially between 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. and 4 to 5:30 p.m. The bumper-to-bumper situation is a recipe for disaster. Traffic congestion causes the inability to forecast travel time accurately, allocating more time to travel just in case and less time for productive activities. Blocked traffic may interfere with emergency vehicles traveling to their destination where they are urgently needed and causes a spillover effect from congested main arteries to secondary roads and side streets as alternative routes are attempted, which may affect neighborhood amenities and real estate prices. There are just too many vehicles in Little Grenada, more vehicles than people, some may say. Worthy judges, we do not have a recycle factory, so when vehicles have no more life, they are dumped somewhere within the community. Only recently, I observed an ugly sight in Calavini. Vehicles are dumped just off the road. What an eyesore. Is this pure Grenada? This clearly detracts from the attractiveness of Grenada in the eyes of visitors. You see, Honorable Chair, we learned that many of the imported vehicles are not manufactured to be used only in third world countries like Grenada, and so when they begin to give trouble, it is difficult to source parts. In some cases, it takes months to find a suitable part. The mechanic shops do not have space to house these vehicles, and so, again, they are dumped by the roadsides. We cannot sit here and allow our opponents to thwart our minds. We cannot accept the detonation of our country and our people for the collection of revenue. The debate question must be answered in the affirmative. We unequivocally state that the capping of the importation of vehicles annually is inevitable. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case.
The first speaker for the opposition.
Good morning, all. Our debate today can be likened to an iceberg. The tip may seem significant above the surface, but its true magnitude and mass run deep beneath the surface, just like the issue of capping vehicles in Grenada. Honorable Chair, it is my team's task today to oppose the moot. Be it resolved that the importation of vehicles into Grenada be capped annually. As first speaker, I will define key terms and highlight problems that could arise due to capping of vehicles in Grenada. My second speaker will further strengthen our argument and present more beneficial and effective alternatives to capping. Burton's Legal Thesaurus 2007 defines cap as, and I quote, maximum, ceiling, greatest amount, limit, unquote. According to the World Trade Organization, importation is defined as, and I quote, the movement of a product from outside a territory to inside that territory, unquote. For the purposes of this debate, references to Grenada refer to a tri-island state located 12 degrees north and 61 degrees west and has an overall area of 133 square miles. In consultation with the Ministry of Labor and Mr. Nigel Hippolyte, the sales manager of Steels Auto, it was revealed that Grenada has one of the best road networks in the OECS, which ascribes to international standards, suitable for a variety of vehicles, all of which are imported. In fact, according to the Statistics Department in the Ministry of Finance, Grenada imported approximately 2,000 new and used vehicles each year during the last 10 years for both private and public use. This clearly shows that everyone is affected by vehicle importation. That's why we stand resolute in our disagreement with the moot. We believe that capping does not solve issues associated with vehicle importation, but creates several other problems. We therefore choose to restate the moot with an addendum as follows. Be it resolved that the limited number of vehicles entering the country each year is not the best solution to existing issues. Instead, it exacerbates them. The problems that could arise due to capping motor vehicles importation run deeper than one may initially think. Firstly, capping can lead to an increase in our already notable levels of unemployment. This can happen directly when new and used car dealership, bus drivers and conductors, auto mechanics, automotive parts sale dealers, and fuel company experience a significant reduction in business. The indirect repercussions are equally frightening. Mr. Hippolyte of Steels Auto highlighted that airline companies outside of peak seasons transport vehicle dealers across the world several times a year. Capping will provoke the loss of their main sources of income. Private sector affected too. Increased unemployment, increased poverty. The government will also suffer a significant blow. Approximately 3/4 of Grenada GDP comes from vehicle importation. Honorable Chair, with the current state of economy, can the government afford this significant drop in revenue? Furthermore, many public sector jobs will be lost and government will be unable to meet its financial commitments. On the flip side of the coin, increased spending is required to implement a capping program. Honorable Chair, this is cutting off your leg in preparation to walk 1,000 miles. In addition, limiting the number of vehicles in Grenada will also lead to an increase in demand, which will provoke the rising price of vehicles, a spillover effect we cannot afford to happen. The cost of living will increase, and this will lead to segregation of classism, battle of the haves and have-nots. Furthermore, an unnecessary act like capping can stimulate corruption in our little island. John Black and Moore, in the book, The Dictionary of Economics, support this when they said that, and I quote, administrative import controls reduce competition in the economy and provide opportunities for corruption, unquote. My colleagues and I don't downplay the problems associated with vehicle importation, and this was underscored by the director of Hoggins Automotive, Mr. Ryson Lai, when he said that eventually something will have to be done to manage the number of vehicles utilizing Grenada's infrastructure. Fear not, Honorable Chair. My second speaker will now present some feasible alternatives to capping and further our case. I thank you.
The second speaker for the proposition.
With protocol already established, good morning. A country's health is its wealth, and so is the duty of the government to do all within its power to preserve the health of its people and the environment. Ladies and gentlemen, as my colleague stated, thousands of vehicles are imported into Grenada annually without any form of restrictions. Statistics obtained from the Inland Revenue state that 62% of vehicles imported over the last 7 years were used. Many of these vehicles have passed the age of serviceability, and so within a short period, they are unable to operate efficiently. The fact that we do not have any recycling factories, owners park them on the side of the road, turning Grenada into a scrapyard, a degrading of the aesthetic of our country. This is a detriment to the tourist industry of pure Grenada. Worthy judges, harmful exhaust caused by the wear and tear of valve seals, valve guides, and cylinder bowl pollute the air. Pollutants include benzene, ozonides, peroxides. Research-based evidence from Europe reveals, and I quote, each year, air pollution causes 200,000 extra cases of bronchitis in children, plus 15,000 hospital admissions, 395,000 asthma attacks in adults, and 162,000 in children, end quote. Startling, vehicle pollution is causing all this damage to U.S. population. Imagine what it will do to a small population as ours. Honorable Chair, Europe has undertaken numerous studies to determine the impact of car exposure on human health and the environment. The results were alarming, especially because the findings showed that long-term exposure to air pollution from cars in adults over 30 years of age caused an extra 21,000 premature deaths per year, resulting from respiratory or heart diseases. We are certain that if the importation of vehicles is capped annually, this serious health risk will be depleted. Honorable Chair, we cannot afford to forget global warming. According to Science.com, the gases emitted from vehicles is the single largest contributor of global warming in the United States. These gases trap heat in the atmosphere, causing temperature to rise at an excruciating level. Worthy judges, what do you think outside is burning with heat, not as it used to? The answer is simple. Vehicles are overpopulated, but this can change. There needs to be a cap on the number of vehicles imported each year. Unfortunately, the effects don't stop there. Nitrous oxide contributes to the deletion of the ozone layer that shields the Earth from dangerous ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide mix with rainwater to create acid rain, which damages crops, forests, vegetation, and buildings. Worthy judges, just imagine the vegetation of Grenada being destroyed. If a limit isn't enforced, this will be the future environmental crisis to take place. As we all say, prevention is better than cure. In this case, there may not be a cure. It's better to strike the rod while it's hot. The protection of our environment is of crucial importance, and capping the importation of vehicles is a major stepping stone to survival. This is why we firmly state that we cap the importation of vehicles annually and reduce the health and environmental risk we experience. Ladies and gentlemen, I hereby rest my case.
The second speaker for the opposition.
Even though my opponent has presented points which make capping seem to be panacea for issues, my colleagues and I maintain that capping causes more problems than it will solve, and that there are more highly workable alternatives to capping of vehicles. We therefore maintain our addendum moot as follows. Be it resolved that limiting the number of vehicles entering the country each year is not the best solution to existing issues. Instead, it exacerbates them. It is therefore my esteemed pleasure to present for your contemplation, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Chair, workable alternatives which will in turn actually solve problems associated with vehicle importation. Please consider while I present this information that these alternatives are based on empirical data collected from stakeholders who will be affected directly and indirectly by vehicle capping. These include the Government of Grenada via the Ministry of Finance and Energy, the Ministry of Health and the Environment, the Inland Revenue, the two largest new vehicle sales company, the largest used car company, and busmen from zones 2 and 6. In 2014 alone, government collected 22 million. In 2015, 28 million. And in 2016, $39 million. And these are just taxes from vehicle importation, excluding license, etc. So far for this year, the government has collected $6.5 million in license alone. This being a major contribution to our already troubled economy, I now highlight some alternatives or proposals that would even increase such a significant factor in our GDP. Firstly, making importing environmentally friendly vehicles more affordable by lowering the threshold on overall taxes for new green vehicles. while increasing on duties on older vehicles since they leave a larger carbon footprint as compared to modern vehicles. Mr. Nigel Hippolyte, sales manager of Steels Auto, stated that newer models of vehicles which are manufactured within the last 8 years are more fuel efficient and as a result emit little or no greenhouse gases. It therefore makes no sense to ensure that newer vehicles are available to drivers island-wide. Next, it is critical and that gradual transition is made towards using cleaner, renewable sources of energy, not only in relation to vehicles we use, but in every sector. Clean energy such as biofuel, solar energy, hybrid vehicles are the models of the future. This is emphasized by Grenada's signing of the Paris Agreement, Climate Change 2016, whose ultimate goal is to keep global warming below 2 degrees Celsius increase. Mandatory and stringent testing of fuel vehicle emission is critical. Also important and enforcement of environmentally friendly vehicle ownership practices, forward-thinking solutions without violating a person's right to own a vehicle. Most importantly, education campaigns that will highlight harmful vehicle use and practices, and such will ensure individuals make more responsible decisions in terms of use and ownership of vehicles. Steels manager stated that educating individuals would encourage them to take proactive decisions that are more environmentally friendly conscious when they use vehicles without infringing on their rights. Remember, it is the abuse and not the use that causes the problem. Capping does not solve. Let's look deeper. I thank you.
The opposition cross-examiner.
Your first speaker stated that it is difficult to source parts for vehicle. Don't you think that capping them will make that problem worse?
No, it won't, because when you cap the vehicles, you decrease the amount of vehicles coming into Grenada. Thus,
my opponent, and that is why if you cap the amount of vehicles coming in, you also mean you're going to cap everything that comes with it, and that includes automotive parts. Your second speaker talked about vehicle pollution and contributing to global warming. But how does capping the importation of vehicles solve that problem when we don't really contribute to the carbon footprint?
well, your opponent, the sources that my colleagues gave were credible, and thus we said that they contribute to different health effects.
But the Dominican Prime Minister stated, when he made a statement to the UN, he stated that we in the Caribbean doesn't produce greenhouse gases or sulfate aerosols. We have made no contribution to global warming, end of quote. This includes Grenada. So why cap something why go through all this process when it isn't necessary?
Well, the opponent, we are not only talking about no, but in the future, what will happen? Remember, prevention is better than can cure. You said prevention is better than cure, right? Do I agree that capping of vehicles can indirectly have repercussions such as unemployment, which will in turn increase poverty? Repeat the question, please.
Do you agree that capping vehicles can indirectly have repercussions such as unemployment, which will in turn increase poverty?
But the opponent, what about the other effects?
Can you please answer my question? Yes or no?
No, it will not.
Okay. So, the GDP gets 3/4 of revenue from new vehicles on arrival. And if the main source of income is cut off, they will be unable to pay the salaries for workers. And that will be poverty. It will increase that.
Opponent, remember, it is a cap, not a ban. We are not cutting it off. We are not cutting off the revenue.
You're limiting the amount of vehicles and the main source of income.
159.21%
Can you please
on
allow me to
vehicles.
answer? Thank you.
The proposition cross-examiner.
Well, opponent, you stated the government raises a great sum of revenue from the importation of vehicles annually and that capping will affect it. Do you prefer to raise the health and socio-economic status of our people for some money?
Can you please repeat the question?
You've stated that the government raises a great sum of revenue from the importation of vehicles annually and that capping will affect it. Do you prefer to raise the health and socio-economic status of our people for money?
We are not denying that they are health risk and so forth. But what we are trying to say is that if you limit it, then there will be the government. Most of the source comes from the importation, the taxes, and if you limit that, they wouldn't have anything. Remember, the government gets 3/4 of revenues from vehicles that come in. That is the majority. And if they don't have that, then it will just lead to poverty.
For the opponent, our health is our wealth, and the amount of money that goes into our health can be reduced if it is capped.
And there were.
You stated that there are many problems associated with the increase, and you have an alternative of lessening tax for newer models to come in. But you also stated, why cap when we get revenue? But isn't this still bringing down the revenue as exorbitant taxes are a part of bringing in so much revenue?
Can you please repeat the question and a little bit slower?
You stated that there are many problems associated with the increase, and you have an alternative of lessening tax for newer models to come in, but you also stated, why cap when you get revenue? But isn't this still bringing down the revenue, as exorbitant taxes are a part of bringing in so much revenue?
Mapping it.
Next question.
Okay.
No matter what amount of revenue is collected, wouldn't it be insufficient to restore the health of our people and environment, which affects production and the tourism sector, a major sector for making money in Grenada?
Can I please repeat your question slower?
No matter what amount of revenue is collected, wouldn't it be insufficient to restore the health of our people and environment, which affects production and the tourism sector, which the tourism sector is a major money-making source in Grenada? Next question. You stated the government raises a great sum of revenue from the importation of vehicles annually and that capping will affect it. Do you prefer... Oh, sorry. Hold on. You stated a cap reduces the amount of revenue into Grenada, but revenue will still be gained. There's 159.21%.
The opposition rebuttal speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my duty to present information that highlights the faulty nature of my opponent's claims. Not only are some of the statements made here misguided, but some of them are in great need of clarity, which I am here to provide. Firstly, opponents, your second speaker stated that pollution is necessary for capping because it causes diseases that affect children and adults. However, worthy opponent, you cannot hold the importation of vehicles the culprit. Our contribution to carbon footprint is minimal. This was stated by Mr. Nigel Hippolyte, the sales manager of Steels Auto. He said, billions of dollars is spent on manufacturing and testing vehicles are imported into the country to ensure there is no evidence of carbon emissions to contribute to global warming. Therefore, as my second speaker stated, capping vehicles will only encourage the use of larger quantities of environmentally friendly vehicles on our roads and significantly limit the numbers of environmentally friendly vehicles we use. Capping does not help the opponent, it hurts. Additionally, opponents, you said that congestion makes capping easier because it obstructs traffic flow. As we suggested, legislation can be put in place to the amount of vehicles per household. No household would need 12 vehicles. And as we say, importation of vehicles is a major contributor to our GDP, and with available funds, government can do more to create available space so that issues can be solved or handled. Therefore, our suggestions are better, since we solve the problem instead of creating more problems. Therefore, we maintain capping does not help, it hurts. I believe that we have erased all doubts against our claims and present enough information firmly to support our proposal. I rest our case. I thank you.
The proposition rebuttal speaker.
Good morning. Worthy judges, we unequivocally state that the moot must be answered in the affirmative. We declare a clarion call to the government of Grenada to cap the importation of vehicles annually. The social, economic, health, and environmental evidence my colleagues presented speak directly to the major problems we encounter due to the free-for-all policy on the importation of vehicles. My opponents, your first speaker stated that a cap on the importation of vehicles will create unemployment for people such as bus drivers. Remember, what the opponents, a cap is not a ban. They will have a fair chance the following year if they are first in line. Your second speaker stated that vehicles are the future models of this country. Vehicles cannot run this country. We are the future models. And if vehicles continue to release harmful substances into the environment, it will contribute to the detrimental effects of our environment. Your second speaker stated alternatives about environmental friendly vehicles, but our opponents, this will be more expensive to the Grenadian people, and capping will be a better alternative to save money. We have presented solid evidence on global warming, our tourism product, health issues, and traffic congestion. There are other alternatives. There are other sources of revenue. There are other sources in Grenada that we can get revenue from, such as our agriculture industry and tourism industry. Money cannot buy our environment and certainly cannot buy our health. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary to cap the importation of vehicles annually. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case.
Thank you for joining us. Please tune in for the rest of Season 10 of the Grenlec Debates and visit us on our Facebook page to vote for your favorite debater.
The Grenlec Debates. Vote for your favorite debater on our Facebook page. The Grenlec Debates. Powering bright ideas.